Hi, I'm Ems, aka I'm Dark and Wings, and I'm a fan of Dungeons and Dragons and miniature games in general because I grew up playing PC games like Neverwinter's Night, Planescape Torment, Icewind Dale, and of course Baldur's Gate, which still remains one of my favourite video games of all time. And of course, I wanted to paint up the big giant space hamster because it reminded me of Minsk and Boo from said video game. So let's have a look at the model and let's paint it up. So this is the starter set. It comes with a giant space hamster, of course, and various paints and a few other bits. The previous sets used to come with army painter paints, but these ones come with Vallejo, and I really like Vallejo paints. So inside the set itself, we've got these paints, we've got 2 brushes, a little watering pot, and the container itself is supposed to be some sort of painting easel, which I think is pretty cool. It's nice to get 2 brushes, one's a small brush and one's a fine detailed brush, but I would have liked one of them to be a bit bigger. I was a little bit disappointed with the paints because the previous sets with the Army Painter came in these small bottles instead of those small paints like that. Although you do get a fair bit of paint in them, I do have to say, and I think Vallejo paints are definitely better than Army Painter in my opinion. So it's not too bad, it's quite a cool starter set if you're starting out painting or you want to gift it to a child or a friend who's getting into painting. Or if you just want to try out some Vallejo paints, it's a pretty cool set. It retails for around £20 here in the UK, but I got it obviously for the Space Hamster. So I'm going to be washing the model before I even start to paint it, and I'm using an old toothbrush to scrub it. If anybody asks what you're doing in the bathroom, tell them you're washing your hamster. Yeah, it sounds like a euphemism. The reason I'm doing this is sometimes when a model is made in a cast, it has these leftover residues from the lubricant, so we're just washing those off just in case. It makes it easier to paint. I'm aiming to use only the paints in this set to paint this model. I've filled up my sample jar with water. Like I said before, I do like the brushes, I think they're quite well made. However, I would like one of them to be a bit bigger, considering this model is a lot bigger than the small 28mm models. So I'm just using an old brush here. I'm dipping it in the black paint and just adding a dash of water. So I'm priming the model. Priming is just where you put down a base layer of paint before you put your actual colours down. It just makes it easier. Top layer of paints tend to stick better when you prime the model first. So I've primed the model now, and it's all dried. I put it on top of my homemade model holder, so just get a container, so spice container or pill container or something like that. Double-sided sticky tape or use some blue tack and stick it to the model. Just makes it easier to navigate and paint the model and not touch it so much with your hands. Using the Scornfulness brown here and adding a dash of water to it. Basically, I'm going off the box art and just putting my own spin on it, so this guy here. So just picking out some of the fur with that yellowy brown colour. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Baldur's Gate. My much older brother played a lot of PC games and I used to watch him play them, and then I got his hand-me-downs and played them myself. Just like the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm more of a console gamer these days. I know, boo. I play Xbox One mainly. Super happy when Baldur's Gate and similar games were ported to Xbox. Next up, I am using the Elfic Flesh. So this has like a bone colour to it, and this is going over the fur. Throughout this process, I'm just adding a dash of water to my paint so we get a good coverage. This is just the sketching out stages where we get our first base coats down and then we can neaten it up later on. I think as miniature painters we've got to incline to be too neat lately. I think Games Workshop and Heavy Metal, despite the fact I think it's a really great style in terms of technicality, I think it takes away the passion of painting sometimes. We get too paranoid about being too neat, or our paints being too thin or getting the right colours, instead of experimenting and making things our own. So yeah, I'm just going back and forth between that Elfic Flesh and that previous browny yellow colour and just sort of blending them together, if that makes sense. So adding a bit of the other paint and then mixing them on the model itself. After this, I'm painting up the back part of the model, so with all those crates and containers. This set comes with a heck of a lot of browns, and browns are really nice colours to work with. They're like a neutral tone. Browns pretty much go with everything, which is great. So what I'm doing here is I'm just picking out different browns for different areas. I also love Fallout, especially the original ones, which came out at a similar time as Baldur's Gate. I really like that isometric RPGs of that style are making a comeback. A recent game that comes to mind is Disco Elysium. I'm mixing earth with elfic flesh here. I'm picking out the sacks and the rolled up cloth in the backpack area here. Here I'm using Parasite Brown to pick out the belt and the straps. I definitely value storytelling over just graphics and gameplay. Going back to indie games, I'm glad that Xbox Game Pass has embraced indie developers. A game that I love recently that came out on Game Pass is Norco. It's an 8-bit point-and-click game with a cyberpunk setting that I've never seen before. It's a beautiful game and a great philosophical story. Here I'm mixing the earth paint with black to make a wash. So I'm going to really thin this down. So I'm adding a lot of water. So this is going all over the fur, and it should go into the recesses and the gaps to add some more depth. I hope you don't mind my rambling about video games. I love gaming in all of its forms. I currently sit at nearly 600,000 gamerscore on Xbox. Here I'm grabbing that elfic flesh and it's going over the rope areas. If you want to get the finer detail brush here, you can do. What are some of your favourite RPG games? Let me know in the comments below. Staying with the elfic flesh here, going back over the fur. Going to be using that brown as well, that yellowy brown we used. And just going back over and neatening it up. So here I'm grabbing the rosy flesh and I'm picking out the nose and these little hands and feeties. So cute. And I'm just blacking out his eyes as well. I'm painting the toenails and fingernails. I'm making a grey colour with that elfic flesh mixed with black. I'm also picking out the metallic parts with this grey first of all. The crates and such have dried in the backpack. I'm going to be washing them. I'm mixing black with that dark flesh here. I'm going to be watering it down quite a lot as we did with the wash we made with the fur. I painted the base off camera. I didn't think it was worth showing. Just pick whatever brown you want to if you're following along. So we want this watery enough so it goes into the recesses and it defines the model a lot more. Gives it this definition, more 3D look once we have a wash in it. So here I'm using the chainmail metal and I left my metallics till last. This is because metallic paints have metal flakes in them. So if I was to put that into my water part, it would have these metallic flakes in it and it would ruin all the other paints. They would have this metallic sheen to them. A way around this is to just use a separate watering jar, and remember that's just for your metallics. So this is the giant space hamster finished. I think it looks pretty cool considering I just used the paints it came with. And if you managed to make it this far, thank you for watching. Remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself, respect the fact that people enjoy them in their own ways, and at the end of the day, they're just wild dollies. I'll see you in the next one.